Listening to the number one source for political, pop culture, and sports talk on the radio. The Julio Rivera Show. Hashtag Conservarican. With no fuck left to give.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, hit it!
We are controlling transmission.
Ladies and gentlemen,
The Julio Rivera Show is on.
And popping. And we're back for 2017. My name is Julio Rivera Show, and this is the Julio Rivera Show. Hashtag Conservarican on the Lanterns Radio Network. I'd like to say, first of all, we have 8 days left in the Obama administration. Hallelujah. 8 days left. It was 8 years of misery. The 40-hour work week was destroyed. Affordable health care was destroyed. Common sense and sanity was destroyed. We're going to discuss all of those things this evening with a esteemed panel of guests. This evening, we are joined by my buddy Andrea Kaye, host of the Andrea Kaye Show. All of you left coastists, Californians, where it's very liberal, are familiar with her. The boys from Freedom on Deck will be joining me. Brian and Chet. Justin couldn't make it. I'm sorry. We took a rain check on Justin. He'll be back in the future. My buddy, Steve Malzberg, who I'm lucky to be on his show all the time on Newsmax, where I also write the Austere Constructionist blog. He will be joining me. And first on the show, the first voice you will hear besides myself in 2017, and listen, I got to give you a little bit of a build-up. He is a political columnist. He is a writer. He is the host of XRAD on Blog Talk Radio. And he is a friend of the program. My buddy, Mr. Xander Gibb. How are you this evening?
Good evening. I'm wonderful, sir. How are you?
I am great. The first thing I want to address with you is your impressions of Obama's presidency and the fact that we finally get to say goodbye to this train wreck.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 200%. It's been a full circle journey for me because at the beginning of Obama's presidency, I was actually on the other side of politics. I was a Democrat, and halfway through Obama's first term, I was kind of like scratching my head. The excuses just became too much. And by the end of his first term, he couldn't blame the previous incumbent anymore for the issues that America was facing because he was the previous incumbent. But the best thing I can say about Obama's presidency is that he actually makes good Republicans because there are more Democrats during that 8-year period that have become Republicans, I'm told, than in any other period of time.
Yeah, and the one thing that these elections, I like to say, are economic. You know,
Right.
they always boil down to the economy. You know, where is, the job opportunities? How hard is it to start a business? How hard is it to be successful? How hard is it to pay for health care? Now, this man's signature piece of legislation was the Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Care Act, which took a family of four's yearly health care from $2,500 to $6,000 a year. So I kind of lost where he came off with the whole affordable part of it.
Right.
But now we have Donald Trump coming in. Donald Trump has made a lot of promises on the campaign trail about privatizing healthcare once again. And we hear these things all the time. We hear interstate sale of healthcare. We hear healthcare savings account that are tax deductible and transportable and portable between family members. What is it that you want Donald Trump to do regarding healthcare in his first term?
Well, there's been a lot of debate about the so-called Affordable Care Act. We talked about it on my show tonight, and I think the most alarming thing about it is that it's the only care package in history that's come with a compulsory purchase order. And then when you can't afford to pay that money, you're fined for not being able to afford to buy the health care. But what people forget is that, insurance companies are committed for 2017 for Obamacare. So it's going to take a year for anything else to happen. It's not like he's going to come in and within an hour, that the Affordable Care Act is going to be gone. And I think in that year, he's going to do one of two things. He's either going to scrap it all together and do something of his own, or he's actually just going to fix it. Because let's face it, even the people that are selling it don't know enough about it, and the rules change. The ideology that you could keep your own doctor was just the biggest joke ever. But I think that, Obama and his buddies, sat down one day after a few beers and said, let's do this. 5-minute job. Let's base it on Romney Care, and if it goes wrong, we'll blame him.
Mm-hmm. And you know what's funny? That Romney Care actually failed and collapsed under the weight of itself. It was written by economists like Mr. Jonathan Gruber, who actually went on a speaking tour, talking to a lot of colleges and a lot of economy groups, talking about how it was written intentionally in very tortured language in order to get it past Congress, because they already knew that there was no way that this could work financially. So I would look at it like this. It was the greatest ruse ever perpetrated against the American people on something that is so entirely vital to Americans, to families, to children, to old people. Healthcare has to be affordable. Now, what, besides, maybe reforming healthcare, what would you like to see after this coming Friday when Mr. Trump, President-elect Trump, will become President Trump, first off, to get the economy kick-started?
Well, I kind of, the first thing for me is that the Trump administration needs to make sure that America gets out of bed with the drug companies, because they've held American people to ransom for too long, and I think that's why healthcare is so affordable. Both Canada and the United Kingdom managed to provide a level of healthcare which they term as social medicine, but I'm told in the UK now that everybody pays something. So I don't think you should get anything for free, but I think the ideology should be that you pay on a sliding scale based upon what you can afford to pay and what you're earning, rather than everybody paying this stupid lump sum every month of a ridiculous amount of money that no one can afford. Because that's a concern. Any new administration needs to be taking into consideration the needs of the people, and screw the drug companies and screw those that are looking to make a profit from it. It's about putting the people first.
Exactly. It's always about the people. And let's face it, the people have risen up. They've rejected the policies of the last 8 years, and they're expecting something different. So for everyone that's listening, everyone that's watching, at the end of the day, Donald Trump really does need to deliver on his promises. I was on your show yesterday, the Xander Gibb X-Rad, which is just the greatest show. It's on Blog Talk Radio, if you guys don't know. But the fact of the matter is, he really does need to deliver on everything that he said. He made a lot of bold proclamations on the campaign trail. Some of them he walked back, but the fact of the matter is, he needs to get in Congress right now, get these people, these rhinos, if you want to call them, to get on his page if he's truly committed to making all of those changes. Real quick, and I want to give you just a minute on this. Socially, America was kind of taken backwards in a sense by Obama. He brought a lot of racial division, during his presidency. We had the whole, hold the line, in Ferguson, and we had Eric Holder and Al Sharpton down there and all that. What can Donald Trump do? Because the perception in the mainstream media is somehow that he's racist. What can he do to try to bring Americans together here? Give me about a minute on that.
Well, I don't know. That's a very difficult question. I mean, Donald Trump is taking over from someone that was our first black president, but has caused more racial divide than any other president ever. And I think he's going to have to work very closely with the police and local communities, because the trust starts, for me, at a grassroots level. And all this bad feeling has really trickled down from the top, but you actually get trust to rise, from that grassroots level. And I think it's imperative that he starts listening to what people are saying and what they want changing, because there's a lot of change that needs to occur, because there is a level of disparity, with regards to ethnic minorities and how long they're sentenced for, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that there needs to be a level of change that is lasting, but it's going to have to be realistic and not silly. Because let's face it, most of Obama's ideologies were just about quick fixes and about placating people. We have to take a long-term approach to this and actually think about it over a 4-year period, and not just about trying to look good to the outside world.
Exactly. Thank you so much for joining us, the great Xander Gibb. And when we come back, we will be back with Mr. Steve Malzberg. So do not go anywhere.
You're listening to the #1 source for political, pop culture, and sports talk on the radio. The Julio Rivera Show. #ConservaRican. With no fuck left to give.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, hit it!
We are controlling transmission.
Ladies and gentlemen,
The Julio Rivera Show is on.
And popping on this Thursday, January 12th, 2017. And my next guest is a real treat. Someone you all know, you all love. You watch him on the Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Files 115 and www.newsmaxtv.com. My buddy, Mr. Steve Malzberg. How are you this evening, Steve?
I am doing so well. By the way, we're on channel 615 also, which is high def, and you can see every single wrinkle in my face. It's beautiful.
Oh, wow. See, I didn't realize that when I go on your show, people can see me on HD, which now I'm going to be a little bit more paranoid the next time I go on. But it is what it is. Steve, I love having you on all the time because you're so sharp with your analysis, and you've been covering politics for a long time. And tell me, I want to know, what is your impression of the absolute delusion of Barack Obama? This guy has walked around like he's God's gift to America when he's done nothing but cause divide. He's brought the economy down to a level we haven't seen ever in history, when you have 95 million people out of the workforce. 94% of the jobs created during his term are part-time jobs. This is absolutely despicable when you see the rise in healthcare costs, when that was a signature piece of legislation. How would you rate, I know you're not a psychologist, but where would you say, the level of delusion is with President Barack Obama?
He is a complete and utter narcissist. And he has always been treated, and this is not just my analysis, he's always been treated wherever he goes as if he's the smartest person in the room. And we were led to believe that. I just was listening recently to the media coverage of Obama when he was elected, and my God, he took a step down. One reporter said, to serve us. He came down to be president of the United States. He could do anything he wants. He could, he's just above us all, and the halo around the head. He's always somebody. Somebody had a mission to get this man elected president. Who it is, I don't know. How it happened, I don't know. But this man is a narcissist. He is a left-wing extremist. He is a pro-Muslim president. He's an anti-Jewish, anti-Israel president. And, you want to talk about the economy, the slowest recovery ever when you could talk about economic growth of any recovery we've ever had. Obamacare, people can't afford the premiums. Well, they can't afford the deductibles if they can't afford the premium. I mean, everything he's touched. And look what he did. Look at who he strengthened. He strengthened the biggest purveyor and supporter of terror in the world, Iran. He strengthened them by giving them money, by lifting their sanctions, by giving them a road to nuclear weapons. And that's what he was intent on doing from day one. That seemed to be the most important thing to him. He went to Cairo. He made a speech. He was calling the Ayatollah of Iran, unbeknownst to us, wanted to meet him, wanted to have lunch with him, wanted to, whatever. And that's who he is. And he's got a chip on his shoulder, as was made evident. It still exists. In his farewell speech in Chicago, what did he do? He divided the races even more. That's who he is.
And had a longer combined farewell address than Bush, Reagan, and Clinton combined. So he just wanted to tout himself as being so great. A man who really, as you just alluded to, strengthened our enemies and marginalized our allies. I mean, and that's really, really despicable. He has what I consider a true globalist view of the world. And someone who believes in globalism obviously does not believe in American exceptionalism. And I think that that's one of the reasons why we suffered the most. Having a president that puts America first, whether it be economically, whether it be from a foreign policy standpoint, at the end of the day, this is what fails. I think that the logic that Americans fail to have is that, we're paying into this system. We're paying into the system, so we can't allow people to come in here through either, whether it's an open border policy, and use services that hardworking Americans are paying for, because it really thins everything out. So I think that that's always been his goal, to bring America down to the level of the rest of the world and somehow be, I guess, perceived on the global scale, on the global stage, as like some kind of a hero, because I really think he wants to be the Secretary General of the UN. I think that was more than likely his ultimate goal. What do you think on that?
Yeah, I would not disagree with you on that. And you said about America exceptionalism. A red light went off in my head when you said that, and I'm going to do this as soon as I get off with you, but Google eventually, everybody out there, Google Obama on American exceptionalism. Every country thinks they're exceptional. I seem to remember him saying that early on, maybe in his first term, because he's got a problem with this country. He's got a problem with this country's history. And when he says it's not who we are, boy, does that get me, because he is not who I am, and he is not who a majority of Americans are. And I don't mean skin color. I couldn't care less what his skin color is. I couldn't care less about Clinton's skin color, but either Hillary or Bill. I mean, leftist is leftist, and I don't look at color. So he is out of touch with America. He's a radical leftist, and now but he's not going away. I had Ed Klein on my show today, and you were on yesterday, of course, right after the Trump press conference. And anyway, Ed Klein said that Obama's starting this shadow government, and he's going to be there battling Trump every step of the way.
Exactly. And listen, we even saw him actually conspire to try to bring down the re-election of Benjamin Netanyahu. He was a part of that. So he's been trying to...
Are you saying America tried to interfere in an election of not our enemy, but our ally? I don't believe it.
Well, that was Obama's America. The fundamental transformation that he tried to bring about was very anti-Semitic at the end of the day. Look at the people who he praised. The Al Sharptons of the world, the Jesse Jacksons of the world. Those were the people, that was his constituency in a sense. We wound up putting a dangerous, racist, divisive community organizer in the most powerful position in the world. And where America stands right now is at a lower point than it was even at the lowest point of the Bush presidency. Now, let me ask you a question, pivoting over to Donald Trump now. Donald Trump ran a campaign which was predicated on the idea of American exceptionalism. and bringing America back to the forefront and making America great again, which was his motto. A motto that was modeled after the Reagan motto. And Reagan was very successful in doing a lot of the things that Donald Trump has campaigned on, which is, large tax cuts for businesses so they can do hiring, tax cuts across the board, deregulation, which was a big part of the Reagan economy. How do you think that Congress will work with him on those issues specifically?
Well, I think I think they're all going to be in sync for the most part. I mean, there are differences. There are differences on immigration. There are differences on to what extent the immigration policy will take effect. But I heard Paul Ryan tonight actually say that he's for building a wall on the border, and I think that's very important. And by the way, that's already the law, as far as I know. Mm-hmm. That was passed. That's something Hillary
2006. The Secure Border Wall and Fencing Act.
We just don't enforce the laws we have on immigration. When it comes to taxes and everything else, I think you're going to find Congress really willing to take up the Trump mantle and Trump to acquiesce where he needs to. And look, let's be real here. Mike Pence is going to be the chief negotiator with Congress. He has an office in the Capitol and the congressional area.
He's the president of the Senate. Technically, he's considered the president of the Senate. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and he is going to. He's been there. He's done that, and he knows all these guys. And he could take Trump's requests and policies and proposals and translate it into legislative language and work out agreements, I hope. And Trump will play a big part, too. Trump is a deal maker. We've seen it already. If Trump is convinced all these companies, and every day there's more and more and more making announcements that they're changing their minds. They're not going to build that factory in Mexico, or they're keeping jobs here in the United States, or they're just going to come here for the first time and bring jobs here to the United States. This is all happening because it's Donald Trump, even though he's not president yet. So I look for him to deliver on, an overwhelming majority of what he promised.
Okay, and it's funny, you brought up Paul Ryan earlier when you were talking, and I just wanted to bring up from this point, I believe it was about 13 months ago, when they passed the last or the omnibus of 2015 for the 2016 budget, there was a provision in there in which they allowed, and listen, at that point, Paul Ryan was already House Speaker, and they passed the omnibus with a provision that stated that they were going to go ahead and issue 300,000 visas, work visas, when we already have 95 million people unemployed, for people coming from predominantly Muslim countries, when James Comey had already stated that it's very difficult and impossible in some regions to even vet the people that are coming over here. What's your position on Speaker Ryan?
Well, first of all, I think it's he's a policy wonk. I watched him tonight for a while. He was on CNN. He had a town hall, and he knows the issues inside out. He explained the Planned Parenthood issue, how they're going to defund that and why, and what the alternatives will be. He also talked about Obamacare and what the alternatives for that will be specifically. He was in depth. But when it comes to things like immigration, I know they're under a lot of pressure from the Chamber of Commerce and other groups such as that. But I got to tell you, these work visas, these high-tech work visas, because supposedly we don't have enough people in this country to fill these high-tech jobs, that's nonsense. We have graduates who can't get jobs, and these people who come over on these visas are getting the jobs cheaper than the American college graduate would get it. It is dangerous. It's detrimental, and it really has to stop. And that's going to be a big battle, because I don't see the Republican establishment, and make no mistake, that's what Paul Ryan is. He's the Republican establishment. I don't see them, giving in. I see them trying to keep what they want as part of a deal with Donald Trump, and I don't know how that's all going to turn out.
Yeah, because they made a lot of promises. They took a lot of donation money. And at the end of the day, that's what it is. That's what it's all about for a lot of these guys. Staying in office.
I got one more. I got one more on this Dreamers thing. They had CNN. CNN to me had a lot of left-wing questioners stacked up for Paul Ryan. One of them was his mother. She came here, and they made a point to say, through no fault of her own, she came here as a little girl illegally with her parents, and now she's under this DOMA, Obama's DOMA, and she has a little daughter. And they're terrified that under Trump, the mother will be thrown out of the country. And Ryan said, no, we don't want to separate you from your daughter. And look, but here's what I never heard anybody really say. Hopefully, Ryan could have said, okay, hopefully you could stay. Maybe you could stay. But, and I know it would come off mean, it would come off vicious, it would come off. But the fact of the matter is, all this talk of separating families, nobody says the daughter can't go with the mother or with the father. Nobody says the whole family can't go. I mean, Nobody is forcing separation. You're free to leave the country. You're free to go to Mexico or whatever country we're talking about. So if someone came here illegally and now they're suffering the consequences, you could go with them.
Exactly. One of the great oxymorons in politics is the law-abiding illegal immigrant. It just doesn't make sense, Steve. Hey, Steve, I want to thank you for coming on. You're the man, a great friend, and I look forward to having you on again many more times in 2017. That was Steve Malzberg, the great Steve Malzberg of the Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax, Fios 115 and 615 now in high definition. Thank you so much for joining me, Steve.
Thank you. I look forward to having you back on my show, too.
All right. God bless, Steve. Thank you so much. That was Steve Malzberg, everybody. And I want to take a minute to discuss something very important, something that's actually one of the big headlines in the news today. We talk about cybersecurity on computers. We talk about the DNC being hacked. There's a lot of really nasty people out there, whether they be from Russia, Ukraine, Korea, China. People want to basically infiltrate American information, whether it be taking contacts through Yahoo. We saw that Yahoo actually was hacked, and the information of actually 1.5 billion people was taken. And I just want to give you a little information for everybody who's probably either watching on a smartphone, you might be watching on your computer through Spreaker or Stitcher or Radio FM or SoundCloud or iTunes or wherever you're watching this, Facebook Live. I just want to let you know, in the past few years, the computer security world has been turned upside down by the emergence of what they call ransomware. I was a victim recently myself, which is really one of the most dangerous and costly malware in existence. It's actually victimized computer users millions of dollars of their own hard-earned money. These are businesses. These are individuals. These are older people that may be not so computer savvy. But ransomware is an aggressive form of malware that utilizes ransom techniques to demand money from victimized computer users. What I want all you guys to go ahead and do, and I'm going to give you some information here that's very important. I want all of you guys to go ahead and check your computer for a crypto locker, Cerber, crypto wall, the Locky file extension ransomware. These are all very dangerous things right now that could be stealing your financial information, taking your credit card information. You know when you store your credit card information on Google because you're lazy and you don't want to type it in every time? Get your computers protected. Get your phones protected. Because I just recently, and this happened less than a month ago, I had to toss a perfectly good laptop. It was, thank God it was a backup laptop and I didn't have any of my work information on it. I didn't have anything of any kind of vital importance on it. But please do yourself the favor. Do not play yourself. Check your computer for viruses regularly. Install a reputable and respectable and a strong antivirus, anti-malware, anti-ransomware software. Because the truth of the matter is, in 2017 and beyond, the future is cybercrime. Whether the Russians did anything or not is subject to debate, and we'll be talking about that over the next couple of shows. But please, protect yourselves. After the break, we will have the boys from Freedom on Deck on 94.9 out of New London, Connecticut. My boys, go nowhere.
You're listening to the number one source for political, pop culture, and sports talk on the radio. The Julio Rivera Show. Hashtag Conservarican. With no fuck left to give.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, hit it!
We are controlling transmission.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Julio Rivera Show is on.
And popping. And we're a little bit past the halfway point of the show. And it's only going to get more exciting. Right now we have my boys from Freedom on Deck. A great show. Broadcast out of 94.9 in New London, Connecticut, where I used to serve in the U.S. Navy. My buddies Brian and Chet. How are you this evening, guys?
Hey, what's going on, Julio?
Hey, I'm so excited to have you guys. I've been on your show several times. This is the first time I've actually had Brian on the show, but Chet, you've been on before. You guys are staunch conservatives. You guys get it. You guys know what it's about. I've been listening to your show for a long time now, and I actually want to get your impressions because this is kind of the theme of the show is, the end of the era. And you guys have covered this as well. What do you think is maybe Obama's most monumental failure?
Whoa. Go ahead, Brian. Most monumental failure.
Out of all of them, because there's a ton of them. But what sticks out in your mind?
Oh my God,
Brian?
it's like, drawing straws. So many of them. I think his biggest failure wasn't one event. It was a theme that carried through his entire administration of 8 years, and I think that was lack of strength. Mm-hmm. I think he so many times. I think with like with the Crimea thing, mm-hmm. He drew that line. Mm-hmm. Said, don't cross the line, don't toe the line, and when Russia just leaped over it, he did nothing. Mm-hmm. He did nothing to stop them. He did nothing to confront them. He did nothing to sanction them. And I think those events that showed that he had no strength to lead. Mm-hmm. And I think that ultimately hurt us, in the world arena. Yeah,
especially like the apology tour. He started out his foreign policy with apologies, apologizing to our enemies, doing everything he could to marginalize America's standing in the world, weakening our allies like Israel. So you're absolutely right. That actually is a monumental failure, Brian.
No, I mean that. If I had to pick one, that would be it. I mean, you gotta. If you're going to be the president of the United States, you have to serve, and you have to be strong. And I think that's what Donald Trump represents: strength. Mm-hmm. I watched him, serving up a dish to the media when he was doing his press conference. And they're trying to, cut him off and rope them in, it's just like, and he stops them right in their tracks. Mm-hmm. Be quiet.
Yeah, and now I want to bring in mean Chet Martin here. And you know what I love about going on Freedom on Deck? Every time I come on Freedom on Deck, they always lead you in with like wrestling theme music. And I'm a huge wrestling fan. I know you guys are too. But I want to get your take on that. Brian. Chet. What do you think was, in your opinion, Obama's largest failure as far as what he was packaged and what the promises were versus what the American people actually got?
Well, his failure is much more to do with what he actually accomplished. Mm. If you want to look at Barack Obama as a failure, I can argue that he actually accomplished much of what he wanted to do. Mm. First of all, we have so many folks in Washington right now that have been infiltrated from the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, if you want to talk about Obama's legacy, he's the president with the most terrorist attacks in our country by far. And as far as his speech goes, I don't give a damn. A lot of these terrorist attacks, yes, they have been infiltrated by ISIS. We have the most mass shootings by far under President Barack Obama. He has set relations back in the black communities and every community by far. Started a secret war against the police, and he did that under our nose. Defunded our military and fired, and had the most generals leave under his administration, added another $10 trillion to our national debt, destabilized the Middle East, and allowed ISIS to gain power. He was our president that had our intel spy on our citizens, including me and you and Brian, Julio. Benghazi and the Arab Spring had the IRS attack conservative groups such as ours. Do I need to go down the list constantly?
That's pretty comprehensive there, and I'm impressed. It just rolls off of the tongue with Mean Chet Martin. The fact of the matter is, all those things that you're saying are very true. And from picking up on the angle where you actually took it, I don't think it was in a sense for someone like Barack Obama maybe necessarily considered a failure for the extreme left, because I think that the extreme left wanted this the entire time. They wanted open borders. They wanted the marginalization of American exceptionalism. They wanted to bring us down to the level of the rest of the world. Because think about it, if you believe in socialism, you believe in socialism as an ideology not only for your country, but for the rest of the world. So the easiest way to implement global socialism is through open borders.
True. Julio, he is leaving us right now, and he just put hundreds of tanks in Poland to make a statement against Russia. They are trying to create World War III, whether we like to admit it or not, and it's going to be up to Donald Trump to take that down. And if Donald Trump can do that, hey, man, I'm all for Donald Trump. But Barack Obama's been a failure completely.
Yeah, you have to ask yourself whether or not Donald Trump would be equal to the task in that scenario. But I look at it like this. I think Putin, and I don't like Putin. I think he's a killer. I think he rules with an iron fist. He's against everything that our Constitution stands for. I really don't like Putin at all. But I think Putin is smart enough to realize what Obama's doing. And I don't think that, with all this, phony aggression that Obama's trying to show, maybe trying to, take his balls out of Michelle's purse here at the 11th hour and try to show some kind of strength. I don't think Putin's going to fall for it. And I think that maybe when Donald Trump comes in, it does usher in a new era of U.S.-Russian relations. What do you think of that?
Brian, that's a possibility. That's a possibility. The other possibility is that it creates so much tension between our countries again that we go back into another Cold War, or worse. Listen, we've had build-ups where NATO has done exercises and all that before, but not like this. Not like this.
So you think there's a declaration of force from the United States, like these tanks being brought to Poland? Do you think that's actually a declaration of force from the United States?
Here's what I think. I think it's like this. We have exercises that we do, joint exercises with NATO and other countries and things like that. It's kind of like what we do with South Korea, and and what is it, Kim Jong or whatever? He has this hissy fit every time we do it, but it's always the same each time that we do it. We don't bring any more or less in. We go over there. We use most of their equipment to do these exercises with them, and then we go home. This is different. We are bringing in massive amounts of equipment into Poland, and it's not a good thing. It's just not a good thing. And I think it's something that's really going to strain the already strained relationship between Russia and America.
Okay, Donald Trump has promised to strengthen our military. There's going to be a lot of military spending. I think, and I believe in, what Reagan did was correct. I believe in peace through strength. Do you expect, what do you expect, like, the military to look like, under Donald Trump versus Barack Obama?
Well, I think we've already seen that the military is being stepped up. Donald Trump has already said he's going to increase our Navy tenfold. Barack Obama has stripped our military down in such an effect that it has hurt us, and the American people see it. Let's be clear. Barack Obama is a troll for the Muslim Brotherhood. That's right, I said it. And his wife looks like Sasquatch. I don't care how this sounds. I've had it with this man. I don't want to see him anymore. I hope he goes into the abyss, but I doubt that because I've seen things about him going to, as far as the Secretary of the UN, and this guy's not going away, folks. If we're talking about Barack Obama, don't think he's going anywhere. He's staying right where he is.
Let me ask you a question. I want to get each guy's one-word answer. How are you guys going to feel next Friday at high noon when Donald Trump is inaugurated? Brian first.
Oh, man. Relieved.
Relieved. Okay, what do you say, mean chat?
Proud.
Proud. Me too. You know what? Proud is a good word because I'm proud of the American people finally standing up against what we've been told and fed either through the mainstream media, being shamed into thinking that being proud of being Americans is a horrible thing. I'm sick of it, and I'm ready for a new era. It wasn't the guy that I wanted, but it certainly isn't the outcome that could have happened, which would have been a disaster had Hillary Clinton won.
Julio, me and Brian were crusaders too, man. But you know what? When push came to shove, it was what it was, and we got Donald Trump.
And whether or not we got hated for it or not, we're still real conservatives. I love you guys. Why don't you guys tell us where they can catch your show?
Yeah, so this weekend, just check us out on 949newsnow.com, and this weekend's going to be really good because we have Juanita Broderick, and she is the first woman that came forward as a rape victim from Bill Clinton. This is going to be a big show.
Wow, that's huge. Juanita Broderick, yes.
Freedom on Deck.
Yes, oh my God, that's a huge show. Everybody tune in to Freedom on Deck this Sunday at 3 p.m., correct?
Yes, sir, 3 to 4 p.m.
All right, God bless you guys. Thank you so much. Those were the boys from Freedom on Deck, Brian and Chet. Next time we'll have Justin as well. And on the other side of the break, we will have the great Andrea Kaye. Go nowhere.
You're listening to the number one source for political, pop culture, and sports talk on the radio. The Julio Rivera Show. Hashtag Conservarican. With no fuck left to give.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, hit it!
We are controlling transmission.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Julio Rivera Show is on.
And popping. And we're back with my buddy, the host of the Andrea Kaye Show, Mrs. Andrea Kaye. How are you this evening?
I'm awesome. I'm so happy to be rocking with the Rican. Welcome back to the airwaves, baby.
Yeah, I know it's been a while. I haven't done actually my show since, I believe, October. I don't even know. I don't know. It's been a crazy couple of months. We did some retooling, some reshuffling, and we got a lot of crazy things going on. But you do your show all the time, and it's a great show. And why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, my show is really a labor of love. It's everything that I love. It's not just politics. I'm a crazy conservative, farther to the right than Sarah Palin, man. But I also, I rap about other things that I love. I love sports. San Diego's kind of reeling today because the Chargers are leaving. I also love the entertainment industry. I've got an entertainment reporter. But my first love is America. So that's really what my show is all about. So, I hope everybody tunes in. I'm on Tuesday nights on AM 1170 here in San Diego, and my podcast is up on AndreaKShow.com. But it's always an honor to be with you, Julio.
And I love being on whenever I'm on with you. And we were actually on Xander's show, who led off the show last night, and we talked a lot about about a lot of interesting things. And I wanted to kind of rewind things a little bit because we've been doing each other's shows and stuff for a while, and earlier, during the course of the primary, you were always a Trump supporter. You were always a very staunch. You believed that he was the right guy for the job. Throughout the primary, I was a supporter of Cruz. I was a Warren County chairman. I worked directly under Steve Lonigan. I did work for Cruz in about 5 different states around the country, and I was all invested in everything. But the one thing I want to say with you, because throughout this process, there was a lot of bad feelings with some people, and there's some people that maybe I'm not friends with anymore. And things got a little bit crazy at times with some of the exchanges on social media. But I want to just thank you, Andrea, that no matter how we may have disagreed, we always stayed true to the cause of conservatism. And that's why today, on January 12th, 2017, we can still be good friends and do each other's shows all the time. Because at the end of the day, me and you both believe in making America great.
Right. I mean, our first love is to this country because, we understand what made this country the greatest country on the face of the earth. And whether or not our particular guy that, we wanted to win, whether or not he won, I mean, our first priority is this nation. That's what Ted Cruz was about. That's what all 17 Republicans were about when they threw their hat in the ring. My particular reason for picking Trump, I actually think kind of played out yesterday in the presser, because my main thing going back to 2012 was if Romney had done to Crowley what Trump did yesterday to Acosta, dude might have won, okay? We have had a left-leaning media that's been colluding with the left, kicking our butts for years. And Trump was the only one to me who was going to actually take on the media, take on the establishment, and win it. And to me, I always loved what Cruz was about from a policy standpoint. But you got to be willing to punch in some teeth, and to me, that's what Trump was about. At the end of is that your gorgeous daughter there?
Yes, that is Madeline. Say hello, Madeline. Yes, Madeline appearance.
Hey, Madeline, you are stunning.
Thank you.
Did you know that a report came out today that conservative women, an actual study was done that conservative women are actually better looking than and I think your daughter kind of proves that study.
Thank you.
And you know what? I would agree too, because I flip through the channels sometimes to MSNBC.
You look like me.
Yes, and I agree because I look like her. No, but I flip through MSNBC at times, and sometimes I think I hit like the horror network with some of the women that I see. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Too funny. Mm-hmm. So here we are, 1 week away from Trump being inaugurated. Crazy.
Exactly. Let me ask you a question, Andrea, because you were all in on Trump. And, and I've said this a couple of times throughout the course of the show. He made a lot of promises. Which are the promises that are the most important? What does he need to do first to get the country turned around?
Well, that's kind of two different questions. Really, as a business person, and he was elected by the American people because the American people decided after so many failed promises. If you look back to 2014, why did the Republican Party, why were they handed the majority in both houses? Obamacare, and it was a repudiation against Obama and his executive orders in the open border. Those were the two main issues that that propelled him to the top of the heap going into the primaries. So those really should be his priorities. In terms of how he should go about it in the first 90 days, he's a business person, and I come from corporate sales. I come from corporate America, working for giants like Xerox Corporation and Pitney Bowes, and we're all about you can't just have a goal and say, okay, I want to make America great again. You got to have an action plan. You got to have a 90-day action plan. You got to have plan and reviews where you sit down with your people and say, okay, where are you at? How are you going to implement if I say that I want to make America great again, if I say I want to seal the borders, if I say I want to repeal Obamacare, what are you going to do? What are the steps you're going to take to actually make that happen? That's how a business person approaches it. The American people aren't stupid. Okay, they look at this government and they go, these guys have been doing nothing for years now, but hanging out on the floor of a house or whatever, Congress, and jawboning. Okay, we need action, and we need somebody who knows how to put an action plan together and make it happen. And I do think it's really important. Something else that business people focus on is setting proper expectations. And I think that when Trump came out the other day in a tweet and said, in terms of Obamacare, Republicans need to make sure the Dems own it and all that, that was a nod to his business experience where he's saying, expectations and, who needs to own it. And we got to step back and we got to do this in the right way.
Exactly. And, I look at it like this. These elections, and I said it earlier in the show, are mostly economic. It's a reflection of the economy, whether or not the incumbent party remains in power. I think it's a four-prong approach. I think that the tax reform, on definitely on the corporate side and on the personal side as well, that's important. I think the regulatory reform, repealing a lot of unnecessary regulations which hurt businesses, hurt minority businesses in particular. Right. I think we have to repeal the Obamacare mandate. It's going to be a while before we can get rid of all of it, but if we can take away the Obamacare mandate on businesses, because businesses are not hiring. They're freezing hiring at 49 employees. They don't want to give people full-time opportunities where they have to go ahead and give them health care, right. Especially under those conditions where the health care is no longer affordable. And at the end of the day, the other one is immigration. We have to enforce immigration. We have no lower level of the workforce anymore. All those jobs are being taken, the lower skilled jobs are being taken by illegals. We need to crack down on the industries that hire them. We need to sanction the crap out of them. And listen, whether it sounds sensitive or not, or whether people like it or not, round these people up and get them the hell out of here because they weren't supposed to be here in the first place. I don't have an issue with it. People go, oh, you're Latino, how could you feel that way? I can give a crap. I'm American first. I'm of Puerto Rican descent, and I'm very proud of that. I speak English. I speak Spanish. But at the end of the day, I speak logic. And you can't have a closed taxation system where people are paying into a system to cover services and then have an open border where anyone can come in and take advantage of those services.
Right. And, everything that you listed are the action items. He's got to seal the border. He's got to repeal Obamacare. He's got to, take the actions that you talked about. But there's got to be a plan to make that happen. Like if you look at Obamacare, what's the strategy to replace it? There's an internal battle going on right now in terms of, do we, let it fall on its own weight? Do we repeal it and then let it, in the form of unfunding it? And then, do we replace it immediately same day, or do we step it? Those are the types of things that have to be kind of worked out and done in a way that's thoughtful, because you do have to bear in mind what the expectations are of the people. And if it's not done in a way that actually keeps people whole, that actually keeps people from being damaged, if it's not done in the right way, man, we're looking at some really ugly midterm elections. And so, I like your list, but, when he said a while back that he wanted his generals and his military people to come to him with a 90-day plan of how they're going to deal with ISIS, man, that resonated to me, because that's somebody who understands that you got to plan your work and work your plan, because that's how you get to success. And so I'm expecting him to, do that with every area that we need to deal with. One thing you didn't mention, though, is dealing with the refugees. And, I didn't like some of the questioning that was happening at the confirmations, but at the end of the day, I don't really care what some of the answers were. I'm expecting, in terms of expectations, I am expecting everybody that he puts in his cabinet to make his agenda work. And that should include stopping the flood of refugees from these terrorist countries coming here.
Yeah, exactly. Extreme vetting is very important when you have the FBI director saying that there's basically no way that we can possibly vet these people to allow the numbers that we're allowing in. We've already seen we've seen a lot of terrorist attack on our soil under Barack Obama, and that has to stop immediately. Listen, Andrea, I want to thank you for coming on. You're spectacular as always, and I look forward to speaking with you again very soon on the Julio Rivera Show, #ConservaRican, on this Thursday, January 12th, 2017, the first new show of the year. Join us every Thursday on the Lanterns Radio Network. God bless and thank you all.